something that we'll discuss in this class on historical Jesus. But getting on with it, I've said it before, Nathan, Eli, Samuel, coming down, Elijah, he was a real pain in the you-know-where. Did anyone kill him? No. Elisha, he was also a troublemaker. Did anyone kill him? No. And then you keep on coming down. I'm sure these folks who make these accusations couldn't even name these people. Amos, Hosea, Micah, Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, go on, down. There's some question about Zechariah, perhaps. But we don't know whether the Jews killed Zechariah. He may have been killed in internecine strife. There's some question about how he was killed. So you know, that's maybe one in 1,000 years you can mention. So yeah, this is the kind of thing, and yet everyone's heard it. It's like rubber stamp stuff. So when it comes out of the Koran and it's attributed to the angel, one's within one's rights to point out that it's inaccurate, and that's been picked up through hearsay. And who was it who said the unexamined life is not worth living? I think it's Socrates. Was it Socrates? Yeah. Well, the unexamined. You just tell people like that. The unexamined life is not worth living. If you're not willing to examine your traditions in a serious, intellectual manner, believe me, it really isn't worth the discussion. Sorry to be bitter about that. But in any event, here we have this situation with the Essenes and the Zealots. So this matter of touching a foreigner, that's how we got on that subject, which is in the New Testament, which disapproves of these things. So again, the New Testament has one attitude, or not totally consistent, but more or less disapproves of these attitudes. Josephus doesn't approve or disapprove of the Essenes. He states it just as a fact. This is how they behave. They went even further. They wouldn't even touch an upper member and a lower member. Why? I think this is more like you get in India. I think this goes back to Middle Eastern, Far Eastern attitudes towards religion. What am I talking about there? In India you have people who are what?
Unclean.
Untouchables. Why would there be untouchables in a place like India? What is it that makes them untouchable?
They have a caste system.
Yeah.
And they're supposed to be like the lowest of the low.
Yeah, but beside being low, what made them, being low, untouchable though?
Symbolism.
I think because of the kind of professions that they were forced to do, maybe carrying out excretion, waste, garbage collectors, or cleaning the streets or the latrines, or this kind of thing. In other words, they were reduced to the low. Yeah, you're saying that it became the caste system, yeah, but they were reduced to the lowest form of physical occupation, and there's snobism all over the world, not just in the West. I mean, Japan is a country that has an immense amount of snobism, and not a caste system, but certainly a very rigorous delineation of people on different levels. I wouldn't want to say classes as such, but and foreigners are certainly not. I like the Japanese society, frankly, but foreigners are certainly not looked on with any great admiration, except Elvis Presley, maybe, and Marilyn Monroe, perhaps, and in symbols, icons but are not looked upon with any sort of admiration in Japan. And if you're Korean, and I'm sure some of you in the room are Korean, you know very well the Japanese attitude towards Koreans. It's a very difficult attitude, that's all I would say. So this is pretty normal that within societies people develop these attitudes towards what they consider higher or lower. And I think this thing in Israel or Palestine at this time more has to do with purity regulations. Certain people were not observing purity regulations. I don't think that they disliked them as such. I don't even think it's a caste system, snobism. I don't think in India response to this gentleman's answer here. I don't think in India it was something to do with necessarily hating or disliking, maybe came to that. But it was usually that the priest class had to observe certain regulations of purity, the Brahmin class. And if they mixed with others who were not observing these regulations of purity, bodily purity regulations, and I'm not familiar with all the Hindu bodily purity regulations that are, where would you find these? I think you'd find them in the Upanishads and in the, there's another literature aside from the Upanishads that I can't remember the name of it at the moment. Can you remember the other literature that there is? Not the Bhagavad Gita. No, that's a later one.
The Vedas?
Huh?
The Vedas?
Yeah, the Vedas, thank you, the Vedas. That's where, in the Vedas, more than even the Upanishads. You'd find it in the Vedas, all the purity regulations for the priest class. And of course, in Persia, like India, what do you have? A caste system, a priest class on top, Magi, if you want to call them in the New Testament, and they too are observing extreme purity regulations, aren't they? And therefore, you know, it would be a problem in contact with them. Well, in Palestine too, Israel, Judea, you have the problem of extreme purity regulations. And the Essenes are definitely observing extreme purity regulations. You see it here. Extreme purity regulations are in effect. And if you read the Dead Sea Scrolls, extreme purity regulations are the name of the game, are totally ineffective. You know, as I make a point in the preface to this book here, which is it going to be? Is it going to be what Peter learns in the book of Acts? Lord, I have never touched anything unclean, when Peter sees the heavenly tablecloth come down from heaven. Now look, you will agree with me, it's I think Acts 8 or something like that, that the heavenly tablecloth coming down from heaven. How many are familiar with that episode? It's a famous episode. Peter is going to go and he's sitting on a rooftop. And what's about to happen? A Roman centurion, the most unclean of unclean human beings for the Palestinian viewpoint. Blood spattered, butcher, everything that you could imagine on that person's hands in terms of how they would be conceived. Maybe he was a nice one, but I don't think there were many nice Roman centurions in that sense. You couldn't get to be a centurion without having, cut your way through a lot of blood and gore. Anyway, a Roman centurion was going to do what in this episode? Pardon me for laughing, because I'm an outsider, and you must forgive me, but I find this episode laughable. And I know many people find it, very